I've been doing a decent amount of digital art lately, which honestly has been super nice because I've been struggling with doing art for like the past year. I've mentioned it in pretty much every video I've posted, so I'm sure most of you guys are aware of that. I've just been struggling making art lately, and traditional art especially has been something I haven't touched a ton of, but after I did this sketch digitally, which is a Tears of the Kingdom piece, I really wanted to paint it traditionally, and I kind of thought about doing watercolors, but in the end I decided I really wanted to do gouache. I love gouache. I would argue it might be my favorite medium solely because every time I do a piece in gouache, it is something that I'm really proud of and I'm really happy of the result. I really like the way that gouache looks. I really like the process of working with it. The only downside for me is that working with gouache takes absolutely forever. So I think this is probably the most large and detailed piece I've done using gouache, so I knew it was going to take me a while, but I was pretty adamant about using gouache with this piece. I was really hoping everything would go pretty smooth so I wouldn't have to like restart and especially transfer the sketch over, because I tried to transfer this sketch onto watercolor paper in a way that would make the painting process a lot easier for me. So I did the sketch digitally and then used a light box and colored pencils to transfer it over to watercolor paper. And I personally, with more detailed pieces, not that this was even like particularly detailed, I knew like design wise the lines aren't like a lot, but it's the actual painting process and the coloring that would be kind of a pain. I wanted to give myself the easiest process, and that meant every single like different piece of this painting I did with a different color of colored pencils. That way the sketch was really easy for me to read, because sometimes personally when I have a lot of lines going on, like obviously I drew it, it can still be confusing when it comes to the actual line work of trying to figure out what is what. So I did every piece in a separate color. I did the dragon in like a dark blue, I did Link in red, and then I did the flowers in like a greenish color, just to visually separate everything for myself. Made the process a lot easier. As you can see, I'm doing a lovely gouache painting of Link and the Light Dragon from Tears of the Kingdom. I have been playing the game kind of sporadically, actually. I have been playing it in spurts, so I'll like get really into it, have a day where I play like 6 hours on one of my days off, and then I won't touch it for a couple of weeks. It's been very interesting. I've definitely been getting into it more in the past couple of weeks. I'm sure a lot of other people play the game this way, but I've been kind of neglecting the main story quest because I don't know how long it is, and I don't want to finish the game right now because there's so many small things I want to do. There's so many small things I want to do. A lot of things that I haven't even like touched yet. Like I haven't even started. I know you can build a house or decorate a house or something like that in the game. I don't even know where to do that. I don't even know where to start that. There's a lot of like armor sets I want to get before I beat the game. Personally, I'm really worried that like once I finish the main story quest, I'll lose a lot of momentum for doing like side story things, because it is a very open world game. If you haven't played it before, it is so beautiful. There's so much to do in the game. It's open world, so you can pretty much run around and do whatever you would like to do. There's a lot of like side quests. There's a lot of cool fun things to do. So much exploring in the game. Also, the actual difficulty of the game has definitely been kicking my butt. I feel like I've only recently got to a point in the game where I can comfortably fight things. I don't know why it is so much more difficult. I think I was reluctant to use a lot of like monster parts to upgrade your weapons, because this game is different from Breath of the Wild in the sense that basic weapons are pretty much corrupt, so you have to combine them with certain monster parts to actually get them strong enough that you can fight enemies without getting your ass handed to you. Oh my god, it is so much more difficult, which in a way I like, but also at the same time, as someone who is such a big fan of easy games, it was such a difficult thing at first, because then it's like, I don't know, I feel like I spent a very large amount of time just straight up running away from enemies. And of course, as you progress the game, it gets harder. Like there's certain points in the game that you like, if you do this, it'll get harder. There are a couple of things that are small that will make your life easier, but the enemies will get harder and harder. And I just kept progressing the game that way. And then they were like silver bokoblins, and I was like, where did these guys come from? So it was very interesting, but thankfully, I finally put some time into like finding the great fairies to upgrade my armor and all that good stuff, and now I can efficiently actually like fight things that I see without running away. It's really good for me. As a whole, I definitely still feel like I prefer Breath of the Wild as opposed to Tears of the Kingdom. Breath of the Wild was just very like funky fresh to me. I don't know, it was my first Zelda game and I had no expectations of it at all. There's nothing wrong with Tears of the Kingdom. Tears of the Kingdom is an absolutely beautiful, wonderful game. But I think the part that makes me like Breath of the Wild more was exploring Hyrule for the first time was really nice. And while they did a really good job in Tears of the Kingdom with the depths as well as like the Sky Islands, I do think having to explore Hyrule again, it's very fun by all means, but it is like that sense of like repetitiveness of it's not the same like breath of fresh air as exploring for the first time. And the Sky Islands and depths are cool, like I said, but the depths were absolutely terrifying to me when I first started playing the game. The amount of fear I felt going down there, especially like little old me not having like any fighting capabilities in this game because I was reluctant to upgrade my weapons and use my monster parts. I had like not super, if at all, upgraded armor. It was terrifying down there. And then like I would run out of weapons and I'd be like, I have to get out of here. So it's still a ton of fun, and I'm very invested in the story. I know I say that also being like, I don't want to like finish the game and progress the story, but I'm so invested in the story. It's so good. I don't want any like huge spoilers. I'm not going to say any huge spoilers. I guess I should have probably mentioned that a little bit sooner, but I'm not going to spoil anything for the game. I haven't even finished it myself, so it's not like I can even spoil the ending, but I would like to keep the comments also a vague space if you want to talk about anything. Make it a little vague so we're not spoiling it for anyone else, but the Geoglyph quest specifically absolutely crushed me, as I know it did for probably every single person who has played that quest so far. Absolutely crushed me. I had to take a break from the game for a little bit because I was just like, I kind of saw it coming. I was just hoping it wouldn't actually happen, what ended up happening in the plot. And that is specifically what this piece is inspired by, is like the scene where you see like the light dragon flying away in the distance. That is what this piece is inspired by. And yeah, that was rough. But I've seen, unfortunately, some spoilers for the end of the game, so I do know like a little of what happens, because the way people spoil things on Twitter, like, y'all deserve to be euthanized. It is not okay. I'm minding my business and people will post like, the first piece of text is spoiler warning for the end of the game. And it's like, okay, I won't read it. The picture spoils it. And it's like, please, for the love of God, don't do this to me. So unfortunately, I had the same like plot piece spoiled to me twice. The first time I was like, I can choose to ignore this. I can pretend like I'm ignorant. I can just be like, maybe maybe this isn't a spoiler. And then it happened again and I was like, okay, well, listen. But yeah, no, it's been like really fun playing the game. It's very nostalgic for me, and it has definitely sparked a lot of enthusiasm towards making art, because it very much so reignited. When the first game came out, I wasn't super into it, and I ended up playing it, like, I had no interest in it, because I had never played a Zelda game before. I didn't know what it was like at all. I knew it was open world, but like, I knew nothing about it. But I ended up getting really into the game, and with all the different characters and like enemy designs, it made me create so much art. It inspired me to create so much art just based off Breath of the Wild alone. And playing Tears of the Kingdom reminds me of that a lot, and it's like a really nice feeling. And I remember like the art tools I would use to draw Breath of the Wild themed things before. I think I talked about it on Patreon, but I was really into using like zebra mild liners as well as like a thick black, I think it was a zebra brush pen, and I did like a ton of art with those that was Breath of the Wild themed. So it really reminded me of that and made me excited to make Tears of the Kingdom themed art, which I'm a huge happy moment for me, because like I've mentioned numerous times, I haven't been doing a ton of art, so it was nice to sit down and do such a, it's not even a big piece, like it's not super detailed or anything, the piece that I'm painting right now, but it was really nice to sit down and do something that took so long, because gouache just takes absolutely forever for me to paint, okay? Like, I feel like I can kick out watercolors pretty fast and get a finished piece in watercolors pretty fast. This painting, genuinely took me like 8 hours to paint. I knew it was going to take me multiple sessions and multiple like days. I wasn't going to be able to just finish it in one day. But thinking about the amount of time I invested into it afterwards and realizing this took me like 8 hours to paint, absolutely wild. Because I feel like I've always self-identified as like a fast artist, not in a bad way or anything like that. Like, there's really nothing wrong with the speed at which it takes you to complete art. As long as you're doing art, gold star for you guys, because that's just like really neat as a whole. But I feel like I've always been someone who makes art pretty fast. I feel like I always sketch pretty fast, I always color really fast, and mediums like alcohol markers really help with that. Mediums like watercolor, I feel like, depends how you use watercolors, but I feel like I can like get it down pretty fast. I don't think I've ever spent like 8 hours on a watercolor painting. There's absolutely no way I've spent 8 hours on a watercolor painting. But gouache just absolutely takes forever, and I knew it would. I knew it would in doing this piece, but I was like really committed to having it be something that I really liked the way it turned out. I was initially thinking about doing it digitally, but once I had finished the sketch, I was really happy with it, and I knew I could like the piece more if it was traditional. I would just have to like really put in the effort to make it out of gouache, because I don't know, I've felt really disconnected with watercolors lately. I don't really know why. It's probably just because I haven't used watercolors a ton lately, and I don't know. I don't know if I just like lost the way I used them. Not like anything that's permanent or I'm worried about, but just in the sense of like, I don't know, I don't feel as comfortable using them as I used to. Not that I particularly felt super comfortable with gouache, but I think it was different in the sense of I've never really felt super comfortable using gouache. I definitely have a certain level of comfortability with it, but it's not a medium that I've used a ridiculous amount, so I'm not like super set in my ways of using gouache. I'm kind of learning new things every time I do it. And thankfully the process for this piece was actually something that went pretty smooth. Nothing drastically bad happened. I did have to like redo the background twice to get it to be like a solid flat color, which was time consuming, and then like painting around all the little details. It was a lot of time invested into it, but worth it in the end because I am really happy with how this piece turned out. This is also this month's Patreon print, so for the month of August, if you pledge to my $10 tier on Patreon, you can get a 5x7 print of this piece. It is international, so it doesn't matter where you live, it's just $10 USD to get this guy shipped to you. So link is always in my description if you're interested in that at all. Also, thankfully, my cats were super peaceful with this piece. Every single one of them decided they wanted to hang out at some point in the painting process, which I always appreciate when my cats want to hang out with me while I'm painting. I think it is the cutest thing in the world. However, sometimes they are very not conscious or caring of their surroundings, and they will like lay down directly on what I'm working on, or for example, for this piece, at some point in time, the casualty I had was Fiora stepping directly into my paint palette, so she ended up getting like orange gouache directly on her foot, all over her foot. She did not want me to touch her. I had to like violently grab her leg and wipe her off, and she was freaking out. But thankfully, she did not step in the gouache and then immediately step on the painting, because although as cute as it would have been to have a little paw print there, if she had like stepped on Link's face, for example, I probably would have cried. It would not have been good for me or anyone else, but thankfully, somehow in my time of like painting on my desk, I have managed to avoid that. They have stepped in my palette and then immediately stepped on my desk and left little paw prints of paint before, which has been so cute, but every time my pets step in my paint, it freaks me out because I'm like, you're gonna end up licking this, and like I don't know if it's non-toxic, and then I have to like panic, get a paper towel, take them to the sink, wash off their foot, and I'm like, you guys can't do this to me. It's a very dramatic situation. But as we are coming to the end of this painting as a whole, thank you guys so much for watching. Like I've mentioned in my YouTube videos for the past pretty much year, I'm so sorry my upload schedule has been very sporadic. I'm trying to just get into the habit of making a video whenever I feel like making a video or whenever I want to, just to kind of ease my way back into things, because optimally, I would love to get back to a regular posting schedule and regularly making YouTube videos, because it's something I do really enjoy and I'm very passionate about it, so that is definitely the end goal. And like I mentioned earlier, this piece will be available as a print on my Patreon for the entire month of August, so if you're interested in that, link is always in the description box below. Trying to get better at plugging things, especially when it's relevant, but it's weird. I don't know. It's not for me. But thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.